Today we are going to talk about the structure of pons. You know, pons is one part of the brainstem, right? And let's see where the pons is exactly situated, right? First, I will make the diagram of central nervous system from the side, right? Here is your cerebral hemisphere, yes. Midbrain, pons, medulla, spinal cord, cerebellum, right? Now, actually, all this structure from here up to here and this is called brainstem, right? And in the brainstem, this portion is called, yes please, midbrain, and this portion is called pons, and this portion is called medulla, right? And of course this is spinal cord. Now, the pons is part of the brainstem which is above the medulla and below the midbrain and in front of cerebellum. Is that right? Now, if you see from the front, this is the side view. If you look at the central nervous system from the front, how the brainstem looks. Cerebral hemisphere, please identify the structure. This is all cerebral hemispheres. Of course, if it is in the middle, this is parietal lobe and this is temporal lobe, right? And brainstem here in this diagram is this area in the within blue lines. This is your brainstem. And again, what is this portion of the brainstem? Midbrain, right? And here is your, yes please, pons. This is your pons which we'll study in detail today. And of course, what is it? Medulla. Is that right? No problem up to this? Before I really go into detail of pons, a very important relationship should be learned between the brainstem and cerebellum, right? Actually, there are very important connections between the components of brainstem and cerebellum. Lot of axons and fibers are connecting the brainstem with the cerebellum. Now, there are some fibers which are connecting the, what is this? Medulla with the cerebellum. This is called inferior cerebellar peduncle. And then there are connections between the pons and cerebellum. Yes, what is it? Middle cerebellar peduncle. And there are connection between the midbrain and cerebellum. What is it? Superior cerebellar peduncle. In a simple diagram, on the side view, you can also make, what is it? Middle cerebellar peduncle. Is that right? And what is here? Inferior cerebellar peduncle. But it's a very important relationship. When inferior cerebellar peduncle is going towards the cerebellum, here it is underneath, buried in under the middle cerebellar peduncle. Again, it is like this, that middle cerebellar peduncle is coming from pons to here. But if this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle, these two fingers, then this is the middle cerebellar peduncle. So you can see it that middle cerebellar peduncle is covering some part of inferior cerebellar peduncle. And these two fingers are superior cerebellar peduncle. And again note, what is covering the superior cerebellar peduncle? middle cerebellar peduncle. This relationship is very important when we'll talk about Pons later on, right? That there is superior cerebellar peduncle. Look, okay, I will remove it. Middle cerebellar peduncle here is what? Superior cerebellar peduncle. And here is what? Inferior cerebellar peduncle. And then good students know that this is, what is it? Middle. And it covers a part of superior and part of inferior. Is that right? So brainstem has very important relationship backward with the cerebellum through superior cerebellar peduncle, middle cerebellar peduncle and inferior cerebellar peduncle. Of course, there are 3 peduncle on the right side and 3 peduncle on the left side. Am I clear? Then, after having learned up to now, we should also know that what are the important cranial nerves which are related with the Pons. Is that right? Cranial nerves. Who will tell me? Yes. 5th, very good. 5th cranial. Okay, start with the, what is the nerve which is coming out from here? 3rd cranial nerve. This is related with the midbrain, coming in the, exiting from the front of the midbrain. Then from the back of the midbrain, there is nerve coming forward. What is it? 4. So here is the 3rd cranial nerve, and here it is, what is this? 4th cranial nerve. It, right? And here which nerve is coming out? Yes, 5th cranial nerve, which is called, of course, trigeminal nerve. And which nerve is coming here out? 6. And another nerve coming slightly laterally out? 7. And more laterally out? 8. Of course, it's so easy. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? 3rd and 4th with the midbrain. 5 is mainly from the pons and sulcus between the pons and medulla. 6 come out, 7 come out, and 8 come out. Is that right? Now, I will just make this relationship more clear. I will just draw the brainstem. And with little bit this review, we will go back to detail of Pons. This is side view and this is the front view of the brainstem. Of course, you must be knowing this is pyramid, this is olive, this is midbrain structure. If you really want to know midbrain structure, it is asymmetrical here. Wow. I don't want to draw sexy things like this. Let's make it more reasonable as it should be. Yes. Now, which nerve is coming out from the front here? 3rd. Which nerve is coming from the back? 4th. Right? Which nerve is coming out from here? 5th. Very good. Trigeminal. Here, this is the sulcus between the pons and medulla. It is called inferior pontine sulcus. From here, medially, which nerve is coming out? 6th. More laterally? 7th. 7th. Most laterally? 8th nerves are connected here. Right? And then, between the olive, and of course, what is here? Inferior cerebellar peduncle. Is that right? Of course, here you will be lateral, middle. Now, 6, 7 and 8. These nerves are exiting between the pontomedullary junction from medial to lateral side. Right? 8. Then 9th is under it here. 9th, 10th, and cranial part of 11th. Because 11th has its spinal part also which come up. Now you will tell me, here which nerve should be coming out? 9. What is this? 10th. Here is cranial part of 11th. And what is this? Spinal part of 11th. 11th is of course accessory nerve. And then what we are left with? Only 12, which is coming out at sulcus between the pyramid and olive. Right? This is 12th nerve. Any problem up to this? Same connections, I will put it here. What is this nerve coming out? Yes. Third. This is going backward and exit and then come out. What is this? Fourth. Which nerve is here? Fifth. Now, this is very important to understand. This is the pontomedullary sulcus. And here is your pyramid and olive, and here is inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now, these are the important landmarks. Now, what will come from here out? 6. What is this? 7th. And what is this? 8th. Now, at these junctions, olive and this, yes. 9th. What is it? 10th. Cranial part of 11th. And from here, cranial part of 11th will go down and spinal part of 11th. And what is this here? 12th. Is that right? Now you know cranial nerves, how they are attached with the brainstem. But the real purpose of this review was that what are the cranial nerves which are in relationship with the pons. So you can see that 5th cranial nerve is attached with the pons at mid-pontine position, in the middle of the pons, on anterolateral aspect. It's interior and lateral aspect. Look here. If this is the pons, right, then its anterolateral aspect on both sides at mid-pontine position, there is attachment of 5th cranial nerve. And between the pons and medulla, what is the sulcus? Pontomedullary sulcus or inferior pontine sulcus. Here, which nerves are in relationship with the pons, with the lower part of the pons? This is the 6th. More laterally, there is exiting 7th, and most laterally between the pons and medulla laterally 8th. Now, why it is so important to concentrate this thing? Because when we will be studying the internal structure of pons, then nucleus of the 6th nerve should be in lower part of pons. Nucleus of the 7th nerve should be in lower part of the pons, but more slightly laterally. Nuclei related with the 8th cranial nerve, which is vestibulocochlear nerve. It means cochlear nuclei and vestibular nuclei should also be in the lower pontine area. So if you really know how the cranial nerves are attached at the brainstem, you can at least have some idea where their nuclei should be present within the internal structure of brainstem. So when we will be talking about lower, we'll make a section of lower part of the pons, we should be able to show nucleus of 6th nerve, nucleus of 7th nerve, and nuclei related with 8th nerve. So it means abducent nucleus should be there, facial nerve nucleus should be there, and vestibulocochlear nuclei should be there. And of course, when you will make a section at mid-pontine level or section at trigeminal nerve level, of course, you should be able to show at least the motor nucleus of trigeminal and principal sensory nucleus of trigeminal, and of course at this level you should not show 6th nerve nucleus, 7th nerve nucleus and 8th nerve nucleus. It means one of the major difference, now listen carefully, one of the major difference when you are making section in lower part of the pons and upper part of the pons is that lower part of the pons section should have abducent nucleus, facial nuclei and vestibulocochlear nuclei. And in upper pontine section, abducent should not be there, facial should not be there, vestibulocochlear should not be there, and especially you should show that motor nucleus and principal sensory nucleus of trigeminal system is there. Is it difficult to understand? Any problem here? No? Right? Then we come to another situation. Now, before I really go forward, Why the pons is called Pons? Because it has spellings of P-O-N-S. Why the Pons is called Pons? It was the name of a beautiful girl. Yes, who will tell me the real answer? These are not real answers.
It's like a bridge.
It's like a bridge. Okay, he's right. That Pons mean a bridge. B-R-I-D-G-E, bridge. Why it is called bridge?
You can connect the medulla with the midline.
Whoa, now you made a mistake. He say it should be called bridge because it is a bridge between medulla and midbrain. Of course, it connects medulla and midbrain, but that is not the reason it looks like a bridge. It looks like a bridge for some other reason. Let me show you. Pons means bridge. And why it is called bridge? It must be bridging two important structures. Let's see what they are. Midbrain, pons, medulla, yes. And what is this? Cerebellum, right? So naturally these are cerebellar hemispheres. These are cerebellar hemispheres. Actually, pons is called pons because on its superficial surface, if you look at the pons, right, you will find there are a lot of fibers. There's a shallow groove in the middle of it, and a lot of fibers which are going from the transverse fibers, which are going from the pons to what is this? Cerebellum. And from here also, a lot of fibers are going, yes, where? To cerebellum. So actually, doctors thought it's like a bridge. These transverse fibers are like a bridge between the two cerebellar hemispheres. Right? Pons means bridge. A structure in the brainstem which looks, if you look from the front, as if it is acting as a bridge. It's a narrow area, then expands like this and then narrow. It is side to side convex. It's like a bridge which is bridging two cerebellar hemispheres. Am I clear? So that is why it is called pons. If you look at the external structure of pons, right? If you look at the external structures of pons from the front, what are the important features? Number one important feature, in the middle, pons has a shallow longitudinal depression. Now this longitudinal depression, which pons has it, why this depression is there? Who will tell me? Why there is a longitudinal depression, right? Shallow in the middle of the pons. Anyone? There is a very important artery there, which is lying here. If you remember somewhat anatomy, what are these arteries, please? Yes? Vertebral arteries. Is that right? And these vertebral arteries meet with each other, right and left vertebral arteries move medially in front of medulla, and at the lower level of pons, they unite together and they become which artery? Basilar artery. So this groove actually lodges this basilar. So in front of the pons, is that right? There is a longitudinal shallow groove. On this groove, what is lying there? Basilar artery. Is that right? And if you look at the pons on the front, you will find a lot of horizontal fibers moving transversely. These are the fibers which are collecting from the pons, entering into what is this thing? Middle cerebral peduncle and going to the cerebellum. You must be thinking, what are these fibers? Are you really interested to know? What are these fibers, from where they are coming, where they are going, what is their importance? Or do you know it already? Anyone who knows about these fibers? Okay, let me tell you. Cerebrum. What is this? Midbrain, pons, medulla, structures going down. Now listen carefully. Actually, lot of fibers from the cerebral cortex, This is cerebrum, this is cerebellum. Cerebral cortex need to have connections with cerebellum. Now what really happens, that lot of fibers are coming from cerebrum. What is this? Frontal. What is this? Parietal, occipital and temporal. All these fibers are coming down and they end up into pons here. They end up into pons. These are called, all of them, cortico-pontine fibers. There's no need of high intelligence to understand it. They're simply from the cortex to the pons. So they should be called cortico-pontine fibers. These cortico-pontine fibers end up here. They end up on special, what are these? Neurons. And group of neurons, this is one neuron, right? And if many neurons cell body put together here, right, and these cell bodies together are called nucleus. In the brainstem, when cell bodies of neurons are collected together, they are called nuclei. Now, all these cortico-pontine fibers come and terminate on some nuclei here in the pons. These nuclei are called pontine nuclei. From these pontine nuclei, from these, okay, I will make them green. These fibers are cortico-pontine. And what are these? Pontine nuclei, right? And from these pontine nuclei, fibers go where they are going? Yes, they are going to the cerebellum. So we say this pathway is, look, cortico-ponto-cerebellar pathway. What is it? Cortico-ponto-cerebellar pathway. Now in cortico-ponto-cerebellar pathway, cortico-pontine fibers are going down and terminating into pons. This interior area of the pons, which is having these nuclei, this is called, this is pons, isn't it? This is pons, isn't it? Now this part of the pons, which is the frontal area of the pons, this is called base of the pons. This back area of the pons is called tegmentum, right? Pons, this area is called base of the pons. This is called tegmentum. So we say cortico-pontine fibers go into the base of the pons. In the base of the pons, they terminate on which nuclei? Pontine nuclei. From their pontocerebellar fibers go backward. Is that right? Now, if you look at this structure, this actually underlying, which are these nuclei? Pontine nuclei. Very good. Now you are getting intelligent. I think your IQ is improving or what?
Improving.
Your IQ improving. Okay. I heard that IQ does not improve significantly, but anyway. So these are pontine nuclei. And which fibers should be coming from the top and terminating here? Cortico-pontine fibers come to the pontine nuclei from there. Now this is very important to understand. Cortico-pontine, actually they go to the contralateral side. And they come here and they go to the contralateral side. Is that right? So what really happens? Let's make a small diagram there, baby diagram. Now you will tell me what I'm drawing. Yes, first of all, what are these nuclei? Okay, what are these nuclei here? Pontine nuclei. They are in the interior part of the pons or posterior part of the pons? Interior part of the pons. In the base of the pons or tegmentum of the pons? Base of the pons. So you are sounding like someone going to be neurosurgeon. Okay, so what are these fibers coming here, my friends? Cortico-pontine. Good. Neurology is easy, isn't it? And from here, what are these fibers going? Ponto? But I did a mistake. When you become teacher like me, you don't make this mistake. These fibers should go contralaterally. Right? And which fibers come here, they should also come contralaterally. Now you see there is a lot of horizontal fibers. These fibers are bridging the right and left hemisphere. Is that right? That is why pons is called pons. Right? Again. Now you know from where exactly these, in front of the pons, when you will look, you will go to the neuroanatomy lab, you will look the pons, there are a lot of transverse fiber running crisscross horizontally. You understand what they are? These are, what are these fibers? Ponto, cerebellar fiber originating from pontine nuclei from the base of the pons, passing through the middle cerebellar peduncle and going to the cerebellum. But actually, superiorly, they are receiving corticopontine fibers. Any problem here? But you know, some students are really too good. They will not call them corticopontine fibers. They will call it frontopontine, pritopontine, occipitopontine, temporopontine. But do you think you need to be impressed by this thing? Still, all of them are corticopontine fibers. Any problem here? No. So this is what we looked at the front. The front of the pons is convex structure side to side, looking like a bridge connecting two cerebral hemisphere. Pons is inferiorly having what sulcus? Inferior pontine sulcus, right, just above the medulla, and just on the upper part of the pons, and just before midbrain, there is another sulcus here. What is this? Superior pontine sulcus, right? On the side, middle cerebral peduncles, and basilar groove in the center, and a lot of transverse fiber. Is that right? And of course, as you are intelligent, you will always remember here which nerve is coming in front? Fifth nerve. And there's no fun in telling that here is 6th, 7th, 8th. I know you know the counting. Is that right? This was some frontal aspect of the pons. Now let's look at the back of the pons. You like to look at the back of pons? Okay. So let's look at the back of pons. I mean posterior aspect. And then we'll go to internal structure. Now, of course you understand this is pons. Now, the most important relationship on the back of the pons is cerebellum. Is that right? Now, before we really go into detail, something important should be learned. What is this CSF filled? Okay, I will make it red. There is a CSF filled tube here. What is this tube called? This is in the midbrain. What is this canal? Cerebral aqueduct. And there is CSF filled tube here. What is this called? Spinal canal. Is that right? There is CSF filled tube here in the spinal cord and in the midbrain. Now what happened really? Actually, as its cerebral aqueduct goes down, right, it expands backward, right? In the same way, when spinal canal goes upward, it also expands backward, right? And here, this is cerebral aqueduct. Now you look at it. This is cerebral aqueduct, this is spinal canal, but CSF filled cavity above the spinal canal and below the cerebral aqueduct is expanded posteriorly as well as laterally. This expanded area is called fourth ventricle. What is it called? Fourth ventricle. Is that right? Okay. Now, so we can say the fourth ventricle is CSF filled cavity, right, related with the pons, medulla, and on the back with the cerebellum. No problem? Now, if you stand here, here you are. If you stand here and try to look at the back of the pons, can you see the back of the pons? No, because it is covered on the back by cerebellum. So if you really want to understand the back of the pons, you should remove from here cerebellum. So let's remove the cerebellum from here. We remove the cerebellum. When we remove the cerebellum, what we can see, we'll see the fourth ventricle. Now this part of the fourth ventricle, this part of the fourth ventricle is called, what is it called? Okay, we'll go to that later. This is a tent. You know tent? What is this part of the tent? Floor. And what is this? Roof. Is that right? This is cerebellum, midbrain. Are you understanding? What is this? Pons, medulla, spinal cord. And this is tent of the fourth ventricle. What is it? Cerebral aqueduct. And what is it here? Spinal canal. So this is the fourth ventricle. Its roof of the fourth ventricle extends into cerebellum. And what is this? Floor of the fourth ventricle. Is that right? Now if we come to this structure, what is this? Floor. And what is this? Roof of the fourth ventricle. You understand it? Now when we remove the cerebellum, along with the cerebellum, roof also goes. What goes? Roof of the fourth ventricle also goes. Now your beautiful eyes will be looking at what? Floor of the fourth ventricle. Now you will be looking at floor of the fourth ventricle. So actually, when you're looking at the back of the pons, right, in normal anatomical arrangement, you cannot look because there is cerebellum. If you remove the cerebellum along with the roof of the fourth ventricle, then you are looking at the floor of fourth ventricle. Now, an important point to understand here is this floor of the fourth ventricle, half of it is made by medulla and half of it is present on the back of pons. So, if you remove other structures from the back of the pons and you look at the pons, you will look at the floor of fourth ventricle. But if you really want to be more accurate, upper half of the floor of the fourth ventricle. So we can say the posterior aspect of the pons is actually contributing to the upper half of, yes, upper half or whatever of floor of fourth ventricle. Any problem in this concept? No concept. No problem or no concept? No problem. Okay. Now, let's start looking on the back of it in detail. You like to look at the back in detail? I'm talking about pons. You got just enthusiastic, it's no good. Okay, now I will draw a diagram like this. You are making a section from here, right, in such a way that this section is passing through the fourth ventricle. Is that right?